Ondi Timoner, welcome to The Daily Show.
Thank you for having me.
You know, the clip that we play from the movie, we can only play a clip because we can't play the whole movie, makes it seem like this is a sad story. It even sounds like a sad story. If you tell anybody that somebody made a film about their father choosing to end their own life, you would go, this is a sad story that, well, no one might even want to watch. Why would I want to? And yet, I feel like it's an inspiring story, it's a beautiful story, it's a funny story. It's made me see life in a completely different way. So let's talk a little bit about your dad. I mean, he has lived quite the life. There are few human beings who can say that they have personally known kings and princesses, somebody who started their own airline, essentially, you know, somebody who's running an airline, getting low-cost airlines for people to fly around, wanting everybody to be able to travel, having this infectious attitude that lit up every single room. We see you chronicling this life. We see you telling us the story, and we also see how quickly it can change. Your father was 53, and then had a stroke, and everything changed.
Yeah, he went in for a massage, and his neck was manipulated, and 10 minutes later, he was in perfect health. I mean, he had run 6 miles that morning, and at the height of his career, he had the fastest growing airline in the history of the world. And he led with love. He led with loving kindness. And the airline just was really at its height. And then he was ousted. There were no, rights for the disabled at that point.
Right.
And lost everything financially and all his social standing. But the greatest thing about Dad is he never complained. He just rooted for all of us. He was paralyzed for 40 years. But he suffered with such grace, you know? So when he said he needed to die at the end, it was something we all had to get behind, and thank God for that law. The law was a gift. We didn't know there was a right to die with a medically assisted death in California. And it's only in 9 states in America. We expected Dad to be there forever. I don't know, we just never thought about it. He always said he'd be there forever. And suddenly he was not going to walk again. He had been put in the hospital for breathing issues, and not to do with COVID, but he was isolated in there and he was terrified, and he wanted to go and he needed to go. And my brother found this law, and it was a gift. I mean, having these 15 days, it allowed us to really celebrate his life and to really look at his achievements, and also to help him through a shame that he deeply held. My sister, who's a rabbi, came with these age-old rituals, and we all kind of came together. Like Dad was an exemplary human being, and he showed us how to love and how to live. And so, yeah, it was terrifying, but also the most beautiful and sacred space any of us had ever been in.
It really is a story that touches on everything, because as you said, one part of the story gets into how much people with disabilities lose not just their income, but their access to a life of dignity. Your father experienced that when he's pushed out of a company that he was running successfully because they didn't like the optics of a person in a wheelchair running this company, even though he could. We see him lose everything. We get into that conversation. Then we get into the conversations around the morality. And it's interesting that you bring up the fact that your sister is a rabbi, and how so many of us have these ideas of how your life should end or shouldn't end. It's not your decision. But there's a line in the film that someone says where they say, none of us chooses how to come into this world, but we should be allowed to choose how and when we leave. And for many people, that's a controversial statement. I know that the family was on a journey, and I'd love to know what changed some people's minds about your dad being able to make that choice.
It was Dad's spirit that was just so uplifted by finally having agency and power to make a determination over his own body, and what would happen with his own life. It was just an incredible shift that happened, and we all saw it. And I mean, I am very passionate now, and our whole family is, that this law be passed in every state where it's being considered. I think it's in front of 22 state legislatures right now. It's not a law here in New York, but it's a basic human right. It's a basic human right. Who should make that determination? And even when the film, I was terrified sharing my family at this, they're most raw and vulnerable, but especially for my sister, who's a rabbi, because it was against Jewish law for the millennia. You can't end your life. They've since reversed that decision.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they've reversed that law. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Reform Judaism has.
Wow.
And the reason they say a law without tenderness is wickedness. And that when the rabbis wrote that law, suffering lasted maybe 5 days. with your terminal illness.
Right.
But now there are thousands, tens of thousands of terminally ill patients who need, and their families who should have this right. It's compassionate.
It's a really powerful story, and I can see, you know, when you watch it, you can see why the film is getting Oscar buzz, because it's made so well. Congratulations, honestly, because you bring us into a world where you bring us into a world that's really gripping. It feels like we're there with your family. I feel like I know your family. Your dad seems like the wisest human being. There was like no moment where he goes like, I don't really know. He just says things. He answers so confidently and also so earnestly as well, and so honestly. And you know, one of the most amazing aspects in it for me is him talking to his wife, and they're having this conversation, and it's so fascinating to see what happens when people also have the chance to say goodbye, you know, where people have the chance to say, this is how I wish for it to end. I wish to still have this dignity and to have this moment. But talk me through that, you know, before you go, just that part of their love story and witnessing that, you know, which many children never get to see.
This is a double happiness heart that Mom bought for Dad, and for their 1-year anniversary, and they broke it in half and each wore one half.
Wow.
Yeah, so I wear it for good luck and just to keep them close. Yeah. She's a phenomenal woman. She's a phenomenal woman. You know, 54 years they were together. 17 of those he was able-bodied, and she was jet-setting, and the rest she was caregiving. And and she, you know, we were just doing a Q&A together last night. She's 84 years old. She's such a firecracker.
She really is.
She really is. But you know, the filmmaking wasn't really the main event. The main event was getting Mom to face the fact that her partner of this many years was going to be gone, and to really spend time with him. And it was hard with all the hospice workers around and everyone around, you know, to kind of get her to zero in. But she finally did face it at the end. And she's seen the film. She watched the film every day for a year. First year he was gone.
Are you serious?
Yeah, she watched it. She watches it like a few times a week just to spend time with him now.
I can see why.
Yeah.
I can see why. Honestly, you have captured a human being in a way that few films have captured anybody. You've told a story that I think millions of people, not just in America, but around the world will connect with. And congratulations. Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you.
Wonderful having you here.
Thank you.
Make sure to catch the film. It is truly spectacular on Paramount+.